We'll know afterwards.
What's up, guys? Welcome to BoostRodeo Live. This week, we are super excited because we've got Nick from Classic Nation from that YouTube channel here. They do a lot of awesome stuff with classic cars. It's Nick and his brother, Evan, and sometimes your dad.
Correct.
Well, yeah. a lot of time your dad.
A lot of times, yeah.
His dad's my favorite part. You know, I love you, Nick, but your dad, you know, makes some of these videos have magic happen.
Oh, believe me, I'm well aware of it. He steals the show. That's why we keep asking him to come into town and help us with car projects. So he's a ton of fun. Yeah.
Absolutely. So why don't we jump right into it? I know you have a ton of projects going on right now. The one that seems to be getting the most attention currently is this Mustang you have going.
Yeah.
What do you got going with that?
Yeah. So Evan's Mustang, he's actually got two Mustangs, but the one that people on our channel seem to be really liking is his fastback project. It's a 1967 Mustang that he picked up for what is considered pretty dirt cheap for a fastback project. But paid a little bit of money for that, bought it sight unseen, had it shipped to his house, and he's like going through the full process right now on building it out. Like he's got a 427 aluminum engine slated for it with boreless stacked injection and like tons of like resto mod upgrade kind of stuff. So he's super stoked. It's like getting worked on right now. And yeah, that's the one that caught quite a bit of attention just because his original game plan was going with a like modern Ford engine, and then he decided to go old school. So yeah, pretty cool
project. He's going away from the resto mod.
Yeah, I mean, it still might fall in the resto mod category. I mean, we've had that debate on our channel quite a bit too of like, you know, what's the difference between a pro touring build and a resto mod build, and like, you know, where does that lie? But basically, he's going to be upgrading everything, upgrading the transmission, the you know, engine, the brakes, everything is going to be, suspension's going to be
brand new.
Exactly, all modern stuff. So from the thing that we like to do though is on our builds, we kind of have the flavor where they look really original from the outside. So unlike, you know, really high dollar builds where they have a ton of, you know, custom bodywork and stuff and change the visual appearance, we kind of like the visual on the outside to look correct and then have modern upgraded stuff inside. So
yeah, it's about drivability and being able to use it and use it safely, throw the kids in, throw the wife in, do those types of things.
Totally. And really all of our cars, that one especially, we kind of build to be able to enjoy. And I've always said, like, I always wanted to build a car that I have no reason not to drive. So even like my Impala, I'd like to drive it a ton during the summertime. So there's not a good reason not to drive it. It's reliable and ready to go. So
it seems to be quite reliable in the winter too, I noticed.
Yeah, you may have.
That's great.
Yeah, Ryan had a hand in on that one. I appreciate the help. We decided to go take it for a wintertime spin, and what we thought was going to be a couple of inches of snow. You know, we both were busy with work during the day and ended up going out later in that afternoon, and lo and behold, there was like 8 inches of snow, maybe 9 inches of snow.
Yeah.
And so we end up like not even a quarter mile away from where we live, like stuck in a parking lot, and I have Ryan helping me out, and we're like just trying to get out of a parking lot. So what was going to be just a fun, like little, you know, burnout in a parking lot video, empty parking lot, ends up being a recovery mission. So that was pretty fun. Yeah.
Did you let Ryan drive the tow vehicle? Because he was doing a lot of yelling at you back there.
Yeah, he was the tow vehicle. Although he's allowed to yell. I was in a bind. That would have been a lot of pushing for sure if I didn't yell myself. So I appreciate it.
I think if I remember right, at the beginning of that video, as you come out the driveway, are you actually plowing snow with the bumper?
Yeah. And Ryan did a great job on that. Those like initial videos. Like plowing. Couldn't even get. We took like couldn't even get off the street. Like, into the main like highway. I had to take a run at it. Did it like 4 times.
That's probably should have been the indication that it was just a bad idea.
Yeah,
but we didn't get the hint.
Somebody smarter than us would have been like, yeah, let's call it here and not make this any worse. But not us.
That's what I appreciate about you guys is you still went for it, full send all day.
We don't know when to quit.
We got some good exhaust sounds out of it, just revving it going nowhere.
Yeah,
so that was something.
It ended up being a funny video. Yeah, what I thought was going to be like a cool, you know, video styled somewhat after your Supra video that again was the inspiration. The Supra video that you guys both did on your channel was super cool. If anybody hasn't seen that, check that one out. You guys, same parking lot, the coolest video ever, like slow motion donuts in the Supra with just the perfect amount of snow. Turned out awesome, and that was what I was trying to replicate.
Was not the perfect amount,
but not
of snow.
the perfect amount of snow. So didn't work.
You know what? We forgot to set up our audio that day, and so we thought we'd have all this great audio. Did you guys capture some good audio? Because you could have sound bites for days from that shot.
Yeah, we did. I think we just had we had a mic on the camera. I kind of forget exactly what we had going on, but yeah, pretty good audio. Yeah, I was just rapping it, and the car was moving like a centimeter each time. Like it wasn't even moving. The audio could have come from anywhere because it certainly didn't align with the movement of the car. So yeah. Pretty fun.
Well, that video was really fun for us to shoot when we did the Supra. And I think my favorite part of that edit is you can almost not tell the difference between live motion and slow motion because the car was moving so slow. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I wanted to ask you, though, let's get back to the Mustang really quick.
Yeah.
You guys had talked about doing a media blast to that chassis, but you decided to go down the acid bath.
Yeah.
And that has got a ton of views on your channel.
Yep.
Talk about that decision a little bit.
Yeah, so that was Evan's decision. I can talk a lot more about that car because he's talked to me quite a bit about that. We've discussed what the project was going to be. But he basically wanted to do it right? It was like there was a ton of body panels that we knew were going to need to be replaced. We knew that there was bad areas in the floor, bad areas in the frame. And so the question was, okay, should we acid dip or should we media blast, right? Or just sand, quite frankly, and just sand it down. And the way to get the true body, as we decided, was doing the acid dip. Now, we shot a video on the channel that's got a ton of views and a ton of feedback. Half the people are like, oh, that was a terrible idea. You should never do an acid dip. And then the other half of the people are like, oh, that's the only way to do it. And everybody validates their thought process with, of course, their own knowledge of why it works or doesn't work and what the right thing to do is. And of course, what we should have done. So, I don't know what the right answer was, but that certainly, that was the direction that after doing all of the research that when done correctly, that's the true way to get down to the metal. And then again, for everything that they put a solution on it that stabilizes it. So the acid won't continue to eat through the seams, which was one of the main concerns. And then it basically a foundation of which to build upon. So we knew a lot of metal was going to be replaced anyways. So that's why he decided to go that route versus just sandblasting it and not ever neutralizing any kind of, pockets of rust that would have been otherwise, not able to get via sandblasting. So
that video turned out really cool. And I understand it was shot mostly on GoPro and possibly some cell phone. But it turned out so good. What do you think was driving so many people to it?
Yeah, that's a great question. Evan and I have had a ton of discussions on that. I mean, honestly, I think you're right. Like we spend a ton of time putting together content and videos and really thinking through like what's interesting to us and what's interesting to other people and, try to reverse engineer it and make the perfect video only to get like 4 people to be like, oh, great. So you can't really measure everything you do in the amount of likes and the amount of engagement. And then a video like that, literally Evan put together, he knew we wanted to do a process video just to explain it because it was interesting. But the acid dip folks that he took it to in Oregon sent the video to him and he kind of spliced it together. And literally he did about 12 minutes of video editing where normally I spend a lot of time doing it and doing it like legitimate. He did, 12 minutes of it while I was there at his house and we posted the video and we're like, okay, cool. Out of sight, out of mind, just with the footage we had. And then it started to take off. It went slowly and then started to get crazy. I think we just got a little bit of YouTube algorithm love and it was the perfect combination of YouTube, looking at the metrics where somebody was actually interested in what does the acid dip process look like. And I think the video does a great job of documenting that. And it was interesting to a lot of people. And then half of the people have, concerns with the way it was done and why we did that. And those people start commenting and then other people comment on that. And then, you go down the route of it's a highly engaged video. There's a ton of metrics that, people are engaging with it because everybody has an opinion on it. So
it just goes to show that just when you think you understand the YouTube algorithm, it's like, no, you don't.
Yeah, totally.
Well, I was going to mention, but on second thought, Ryan and I talk about this all the time, and we talk about this on our live interviews, is what is that formula? And we hear over and over, it's keep it simple, keep it live, and keep it real. And that nails all three of those, you know?
Yeah.
And it's very interesting process. But I wanted to ask you, looking at the number of negative comments on that, and this comes up in every one of these interviews, how do you relate? How do you ignore? How do you respond? You know, you try to keep it as positive as possible, but I read through a lot of those comments. Some are, I mean, down to, that wasn't a high pressure hose. Why'd you say high pressure hose? It was a garden hose. Like, who cares?
Yeah. I mean, Evan and I have had a ton of discussion on that exact point. Really, that video is probably one of the first ones to draw like what I would consider major criticisms, right? Everybody had an opinion and everybody wanted to call out the obvious. The reality is, I think that even though people were, you know, upset when on the audio side, it was like, oh, he's doing a high pressure spray here, and then we did this, and it shows a guy with a garden hose. Everybody thinks that they're the first one to it, and they have to just interject their opinion. And even though that might have been like, you know, ill intent to try to call the channel out, I think that actually helped in increasing the visibility to it. So, you know, the comment itself, I think, was helpful. Now, there was a ton of people, like I mentioned, that had opinions on it. Shouldn't have done it this way. Should have done it that way. And, you know, a ton of downvotes on the video, and everybody's like, that's terrible. Why would you do that? And you've overpaid for that thing. You just roll that thing off a cliff. It's not worth anything. And you kind of have to take that with a grain of salt. And I'll be honest, like the first, you know, when those comments first come in, my gut reaction is always to like reply with something like thought out and relevant and engage in a debate. And Evan was like the level setting one to me, to be like, Nick, dude, knock it off. Take it with a grain of salt, forget it, you know, like keep moving forward, you know. And so I think in that respect, we balance each other out, because then, you know, the next video comes up and he's about to be keyboard warrior to defend something. And I'm like, forget it, let it go. So you just have to take it with a grain of salt.
Straight Six fan says, no matter what you do, it's wrong, and someone will tell you about it. So there you go.
Yeah. And Evan and I joked. I said that might actually be the next item of the YouTube video success recipe that you mentioned. Certainly, I'll make my case for it. But put in the video, put something that's obviously wrong, that's easily correctable. Leave it in the video and watch your comments literally flood with people thinking that what would normally be a slight oversight is something that they're like now bringing to your attention for the first time. I mean, it works.
It's funny. Ryan's a perfectionist to the fact that I don't even know if he could let that happen.
Yeah.
And I'm much like you, where I see a negative comment and I'm like, oh, well, but wait, you know, this is what happened leading up to it. This is the decision process. Do you think I really spent this much money if I thought it was going to destroy the car I'm trying to restore? You know, come on.
Yeah, for sure.
I would go through a whole paragraph justifying it and then still be told I was wrong. So
yeah.
I don't know if you want to pull up those pictures. I got a couple pictures of that. It was crazy to me how they left the camera on as it went into the bath and actually submerged the camera. I was thinking, oh no.
Yeah,
that was an awesome shot. Actually, that one really kind of baffled me, because I knew you told me they were shooting it. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah, and again, that's a process that I had known about. I hadn't really, you know, known the details of it, but credit to that company when we were like, hey, can you give us a couple pictures of that process and what it looks like? I mean, I don't know how their GoPro survived an acid dip. It's certainly, you know, maybe the plastic is impervious to that, you know, that type of acid. But when I saw that footage of it like being dunked in there, it was pretty crazy. So yeah, I think people like that. That also might be why people watch the video all the way through.
Yeah. Well, and this shot, I think, is about midway through the process. It's when they're, I think, first blasting it here to try to get some of the paint and all the other stuff that had been done to the body over time off. So what was the final condition of that when you guys got it home? Yeah,
so there was a lot of, it revealed quite a few things. Some things we knew, some things we didn't know. I think we've got a couple pictures on there of like, and even like maybe a recap video of what it looked like, the walk around. It's going to need some frame rail replacements up front. And again, a Mustang is a unibody car, so there's no chassis on a body. It's all structural. And so it's really important that those things be correct. And so this is kind of a scenario where I think that, you know, you would rather be aware of it so that you had the opportunity to fix it rather than just slap paint on it and assume it was good and ever get in a scenario where you hit the brakes really hard or hit the gas really hard and something fell apart and broke that shouldn't have because you didn't know that there was structural damage. So it's nice to be able to take a car down to that level. That, I mean, not every car gets to have that done to it. And it's cool that this one does because it certainly needed it. So
especially given the engine he's putting in that thing, like that 427.
Yeah.
You don't want the unibody frame because they're not all that rigid by themselves.
Yeah, totally. And again, the 427 that he has slated for this is not just like a run-of-the-mill 427. It's an aluminum dart block, so it's a brand new dart block with custom everything in it. But basically, that 427 is based on the 351 platform for Ford. That's a bored and stroked 351 to punch it out to a Ford 27. And so full aluminum block, you know, all the pistons, the crank, everything from the ground up, brand new. And then he's doing boreless stacked injection. So it's going to have the reliability fuel injection, which is going to be pretty cool.
So is it, even though it's aluminum and sleeved, obviously, is it still really tightly based on the original Ford FE blocks, or is it got a lot of liberties?
Yeah, and I think there's almost nothing based on that Ford block. And if, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe somebody else knows this, but the FE block is the big block of Ford, and this is actually based on the 351, like more like a Windsor Cleveland block.
Yep, the FE was the 390.
The 390, yeah. So that's what. So this, and I say loosely based because again, a dart block is a modern block, right? It's got the same trappings of some of the old school stuff that it's based on, but it's essentially a re-engineered block,
right?
And it's going to have AFR, you know, 220 heads, so it's the largest head. It's going to be all modern stuff in it, modern cam, modern internals, all modern guts. So,
hey, thank you for blowing my mind. I thought you were an LS guy.
Me?
Yes, you.
Oh yeah, I know, right? I've had enough. When you have a twin brother who's into Fords, you like pick up a little bit from osmosis. I am. Yeah. I'm Chevy. I'm through and through. So a little bit of Ford knowledge for you I picked up along the way.
So I appreciate that.
Well, we're at this point. So you've got Evan's got the fastback Mustang. Mm-hmm. He also has a coupe Mustang.
Yep.
You have your 65 Impala, which is LS swapped.
Yep.
You've got, is it a 53 Chevy truck? Is another
Evans 53 LS swap Chevy truck. Yep.
And then your Chevy truck, what year's the one you're doing from your dad's?
Yeah, that's a 51 Chevy.
51.
Yep, 51 Chevy truck.
And that one is a 1-ton that you're swapping onto a later model.
Correct. That's on
right now.
Yep, 82 GMC 1-ton frame that I shortened 22 inches to match the original wheelbase. Yep.
Well, I had to throw that in your face because one of the comments, someone who does follow your channel and found it about 2 weeks before the Snowmageddon video, says, well, I'm a huge fan of Nick LS swapping the world, so I had to make sure to drop that before he jumped off.
Yeah. No, you're right. Keep me on brand for sure. I appreciate that.
Well, I can guarantee you that there is a certain 62 Chevy in Ryan's backyard that will never go to the acid bath because it won't make it out of the acid bath. So.
There'll be nothing left.
Yes.
But
we also have, let's finish the build series. You've got the Fleet Line 47 Chevy Fleet Line.
Yep.
That's getting dropped and bagged.
Yeah. I'm going to do air ride all the way around. I'm going to do C-notch on the rear, custom 2-link from a company down in California for that. And then it's already got a Nova front clip. So basically a Mustang 2 style front clip with disc brakes and stuff. So that'll be a full on custom. And I am going to LS swap that as well. So yeah, got a 5.3 for that.
It's sitting in the garage now.
Yep, exactly.
Nice. What happened? Did you have a couple of, were they Plymouths I saw out front?
Pontiacs. Yeah.
Oh, Pontiac. Excuse me. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got one of those still, but yeah, 53 and a 54 Pontiac 2-door hardtops, pretty cool cars. Yeah.
What's your plan for those going forward?
I probably am not going to hang on to it. The 53 is the one that I have left, and I bought it because I thought it was going to be a super cool car, and in fact, Evan and I thought that we might actually make a drift car out of it.
Oh wow.
Which would be kind of crazy, right? You don't see a 53 Pontiac 2-door drift car. So the thought was slap that on a modern frame, S10 or otherwise, LS swap it, surprise, surprise. Manual trans, and then all your normal drift car trappings, but just make it something that nobody's ever seen. Make it like super like wild, as in why would anybody do that with this car kind of style. So probably not going to do that. Which although that would have been a cool recipe. for that car, and probably would have been entertaining. But I've got a handful of other projects, the 47 Fleet line, that's going to take quite a bit of time, and I had to be realistic with, making sure that I wasn't backpiling stuff so that I was going to be busy until I'm 100 years old. So, yeah.
Well, to get you out of your comfort zone, we now have 2 JZ greater than LS. So I know Ryan may have one in his backyard or so.
Yeah, I think you could make a strong case for that.
All right. So speaking, we talked a lot about your love for the LS.
Yeah.
Where are you getting your LSs? I talked to a lot of guys that are doing junkyards. Are you buying built ones? What are you doing there?
Yeah, so the 2 LSs that I purchased, one of them a guy had on Craigslist quite a few years ago. Now my 65 Impala, which I put a 6.2 liter LS in, the L92 variant, which is basically same thing as an LS3, except it came in a couple trucks. It's the same aluminum block. The only difference was different camshaft and different valves in the heads, but shared most of the same parts, same exact block as the LS3. That one I bought on Craigslist from a guy who wrecked his 2007 Denali. So that's where that one came from. And I actually had my buddy help me pull that. It took 2 days in the freezing cold and snow and hail quite a few years ago, probably 7-8 years ago now, maybe even more. I don't remember. Pulled that one in the guy's backyard after his wife had rolled that Denali. So that was my first get of an LS. And then the next one I got was the 5.3 that also a gentleman had on Craigslist, and
oh, wow.
was asking not too much. And I went down and checked it out and, verified everything that he said about it was right. It wasn't the 4.8, was the 5.3. And so, yeah, I didn't have to pull that one, which was nice. But
so what I'm hearing is you're going to pay the premium from now on to have one that's already pulled most of the time.
Yeah. I mean, and I, it depends. I think you could probably get one cheaper than what I would pay or what somebody would pay. Get it cheaper from a junkyard than somebody who knows what they have, but there's risks with doing that too. And think about the time you have to invest and how long you have to wait to find that perfect one that comes through, and how many miles of walking you have to do in a junkyard to find one that nobody else has already seen and try to get their eye on. So it just cost benefit.
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit, and then I've got a list of Resto Mod questions for you, because that does come up on your channel a lot.
Yeah.
And you do hear it both ways, good, bad, and different. I think all of us, we love pretty much everything automotive, and we're drivers. We want to drive everything. Nothing's going to get on a trailer and go to a show, really. It's going to drive there, get wiped down, those types of things. So, but you were talking about this wrecked Tahoe, and I've got this video up of your dad driving. I think it was right after an exhaust modification.
Yeah. This one actually was after a cam swap. So I took.
That's right.
I put the L92 in, which was stock, and then I got a Texas Speed cam that I put in it to just kind of liven it up and give it a little more power off of the line. And as the video might suggest, I think
I'd say it did that.
It worked. Yeah.
I'll put the audio on it. So this is your dad while you're videoing it to get the sound, right?
Yeah, I was just like, Dad, take it for a little spin. Just go for it. See what. Yeah.
I love the audio in the background. Jeez, Dad.
Yeah. Natural reaction. Yeah. I was literally like, Dad, just take off. I want to get a little exhaust sound. So just, accelerate nicely away. And he slammed on it, stayed in the gas. It was probably the 2-3 shift there, because he was going faster than the 1-2 shift. Mm-hmm. The 2-3 shift, he just stayed laying on it. It broke loose, sent him into the side. You could see he gets into the gravel and overcorrects, swings back into the poor old lady's lane, probably scares her half to death, and then gets it back on the road. And all the while, I'm like, God, geez, Dad, what is up?
I'm sure.
Come on, man.
I'll never forget when you told me that story, and I was embarrassed I hadn't seen the video yet, and I went home and instantly put it on. Like, I watched it probably 10 times that night, just going, oh my God, this is hilarious. I mean, at the time, you probably didn't think it was very funny, but.
Yeah, I didn't until we started thinking about it. And then we're like, okay, and then we did an interviewed my dad, video interview style. And he explained what was going through his head, and it just ended up being funny because he's a character. So
pretty cool. I think I came out to help you guys shoot some stuff.
You did
right after that.
You did, yeah.
And I get there, and you're like, "Oh yeah, my dad almost hit some old lady and put the car all over the road." And Dave's just getting out. He's got like blue Ray-Ban style sunglasses on and like a beanie sitting right on top of his head. He's just looking like this old hipster, and just like, it got out of hand.
I think in that interview you asked him, do you think the camshaft made a difference? And his eyes just get big. Yeah, it made a difference. Oh, so great.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the Resto mod debate that seems never ending in your world. Again, like I said, we're drivers. Drivability is king. Safety is third. Those types of things. But so LS, obviously, we know where you stand with that. One of the questions we wanted to ask you was carburetor versus fuel injection. What do you do there?
Yeah. So, I mean, to me, it kind of depends. So the truck, the 51 Chevy truck, I have a small block V8 in that, and I have a carburetor on that. And I cut my teeth on carburetors growing up because that was what we had and everything, and that's all we knew. And carburetors work fine; they work perfect, right? There's very little downside, but where their deficiencies is exactly where and why fuel injection has an advantage. Now, the cost is the giant disadvantage, right? You need a whole different fueling system to run a fuel injection. You need a better fuel pump. You need a whole different, setup to be able to handle fuel injection. So barrier to entry on everybody having fuel injection is cost in a lot of cases. They're more efficient. You could produce arguably the same amount of power, but maybe more efficiently because of, injector efficiency versus just dumping down via, a manifold. But
you can live on the edge a little bit and sleep at night a little better with fuel injection.
Totally.
You can push those limits and
totally. And again, part of it for a car that you're going to drive a lot, whether it be a daily driver or, something that, is a weekend driver, it could even be an infrequent. But the idea of synonymous with old cars is the idea of getting in them and like having to like
warm them up,
hit the gas and warm them up and like crank it over a couple times. And my dad literally, it doesn't matter what he gets in, he's like wants to go spray starter fluid in it. I'm like, Dad, you just drove this last week, man. And he's under the hood and he's taking off the air. I'm like, Dad, it'll start up, man. You don't have to do that. And he wants to spray starter fluid, and that's just the idea. It's like, oh, there's a process to get a carbureted car going. And fuel injection just has the advantages of like turn the key and it fires up every single time and it's dead reliable. And I've now been spoiled because of driving LS swaps that are fuel injected. So most of the builds that I plan on driving a lot, I tend to have fuel injection in the recipe.
I don't know why this whole time when you're telling this, I picture your dad doing the throttle stomp like 15 times and then flooding it and it doesn't start.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh, I mean, people in that age, like, and again, he was driving, cool cars way back in the day that I would like wish that we still had or he still had, but just there's like little tendencies that our parents all probably have. One of my dad's is like, pump the gas. He can get in a brand new car and he's going to pump the gas a couple of times with his foot because he just has that. The other thing is like pumping the brakes, right? He'll for in an old school car, right? You kind of pump the brakes to make sure you have a brake pedal, and nothing ever had ABS. And so coming up to a stoplight, you pump the brakes. And my dad could be in a 2021 brand new car off the assembly line. And when he gets in that car, 100% guarantee he's going to pump the gas when he starts that car for the first time. And the first stoplight he sees, he's going to hit the brakes a couple times before just to like make sure that he's pumping the brakes. So old habits die hard, I think.
Hey, I feel that going through the brake system on the 62, four-wheel drum, no booster, there is not a lot of faith in that. It's a two-pump stop for sure. Just one to make sure there's pedal and hope the wheel cylinders stay out far enough when you push the second time it actually engages the shoes,
Yep.
Oh, it's too funny. Well, we kind of hit on this a little bit earlier, and I think we know where you stand, but modernized versus original kind of fits in with what we were talking about with the Resto mod and safety and reliability and drivability and those types of things. So is there like a determining factor for you on the vehicle or on the build or what its purpose is going to be? Like you mentioned, on the truck, you're going to leave it carbureted. Is there other things that will be upgraded, or are we going to stay a little more original to that one?
Yeah, I think for me, I think each project and each vehicle that I, either acquire or get my hands on kind of starts to take shape and gets its own personality. And it kind of, based on what it is already and what the intended use is, I start to get ideas of things that I need to change and things that I want to change. And there are, in almost every case, things that I don't want to change that I want to keep original just because I like the, preserve the originality of it. I just want it to still look and feel like an old car. And I think that's why, at least for me and the stuff that I work on that's old, part of it, the reason I like it is because it is old and it is different and it feels different. And so I don't want to have numb steering, right? It isn't like everything needs to be overly powered and automated that it feels like driving a brand new car versus an old car. But there are certain areas that, that if I had my way, I expect it to perform up to snuff and not have to your point about brakes, not have to deal with, are these brakes going to work or aren't they? That part isn't fun to me. It's fun to think about and joke about, but the idea of having unreliable brakes in practicality isn't all that fun because we take our kids and we want to go and have fun and have everybody enjoy it. And there's things that we're willing to deal with and things that we aren't. And so to that point, each car kind of says, here's what I want to upgrade. Like, I'm fine with the small block Chevy in that old truck. I wanted to keep a lot of stuff original, but I have a modern chassis because I wanted it to be able to stop normally like a modern truck. And I wanted the tow capacity. I wanted to still be able to use it as a truck. So I put a big Class 5 hitch on it. It's on a GMC 1-ton frame. I've got the braking system from the 82 GMC. So there's some things that I wasn't willing to give on, and I've actually improved upon. It'll tow better than it ever would original.
Stop way better.
It'll stop way better. It's the automatic transmission turbo 400 that's in it now is just going to be better for towing. It's going to be better for power.
Steering is going to be a lot better.
Steering's going to be better. It's got hydro boost steering that never was an option, obviously, in 1951. So those things I want to improve. But when you're behind the wheel, I want it to still feel like an old truck, right? I still want even though I have a modern, comfortable seat, I still want the rest of the trappings to make you feel like it's an old truck and fun to drive. So I kind of take that approach with all the cars and trucks that I have the ability to work on or that I have, is kind of make each one how I want it and improve the things that I think need to be improved.
Absolutely. Does that mean it's going to stay a patinaed truck, or are you going to go through the body too?
So the body, the body work, that's a good question. I've kind of waffled on that. I think I'm going to paint that. I think I've settled on painting. I'd say I think because I always change my mind on stuff, going back and forth. But the idea on that one is to finish it out in final form. But the paint for me is the very last priority. I've got all the reliability stuff, all the drivetrain stuff, work out all the bugs, and then when I have nothing else to do on it, I'll make it look nice. That's going to be the last thing to do on the truck. So
I think that's a big question that always comes up, and on the older vehicles, patina's in. It's been in for the last few years. It seems like it might be going away a little bit. Your Impala looks flawless, and it looks so sharp going down the road. It's hard to argue against that, right? Yeah. But there's a lot of time and effort and money that goes into making that body that straight, to make that paint look like it looks today on the Impala. So there'll be a lot of work in that truck. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. And again, I don't mind. I'm not one bit embarrassed to drive something that's like patinaed out or a project. And I think that's kind of where that whole concept came from is, you guys know as well as I do, and the viewers, that paint jobs are crazy expensive, right? Yeah. And not everybody has that in the budget, right? You can't spend huge amounts of money on paint jobs. And so, that's where rat rods and things came from, is people got the cars running and doing what they wanted to do. And they left them, left that out of the mix. They didn't want to change or try to spend a ton of money on paint. And so as that started to become more accepted, I think that became that, patina style, and people started to accept that as being, okay, that is a done car. It isn't just like because they haven't gotten to paint yet. That is what it's going to be. And I like that because that to me opens up the opportunity for other people who don't have huge budgets to spend on paint, which I don't on every one of my vehicles, right? To be able to like have a car and get the fun and enjoyment out of it and not have one apprehension at all, to be able to bring it out in public or bring it to a show, even though it isn't like done to the teeth like a traditional show car would have been.
Yep, I totally agree. I think Ryan will agree too, is, we have the projects that are meant to do what they're meant to do, and we really don't care what they look like. The Corolla, we know we're going to rip the paint off the quarter panels the first time we drive it in dirt because we go to gravel and we do dumb stuff. And that's kind of how I feel about the 62, right? It's a farm truck. It's a 10.5 chassis. It was never going to be a hot rod. If I were to do it my way, I would do much like what you're doing with yours and put it on a modern 110 80s some point. And then you open up the aftermarket for everything. You can easily lower it, lift it, whatever you want to do.
Yep.
The truck's going to be a work truck, and I'm not a fan of what they did with the black and white on it. One, I don't think it's correct to that year.
Yeah.
Two, it was a rattle can job. So the dark green original color is pretty cool until you start taking off and finding all the Bondo spots. So that's where I'm stuck. I have everything in the garage to do it for about 8 months now. So we'll see how that goes. But I think, like I said, Ryan probably agrees, is there are cars that call for that, and then there's cars that are just dedicated to something different.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think my opinion's changed too, because like I have the Comet, which hasn't really been on the channel at all yet. I think it's been in a couple shots, but that's a car where when I first got it, when you're a kid, it's like, oh, I want to make it fast.
Yeah.
And so it's a 65 Comet Caliente, which the Caliente package was really a chrome and appearance package. It did not mean it was a hot car by any means, despite the name. And so it's a 289 2-barrel C4 automatic with an 8-inch Ford rear end, and the gear set in that sucker is like, man, I can't remember what it's geared out to. It's like 350s or something. I don't know. It's not a fast car by any means.
As the name Caliente to anything, though, and it sounds hot.
It sounds hot. Like it sounds like it could be the Cyclone package that was the 427 top loader 4-speed, and a 10-inch rear end, but it is not. And so for the longest time, like I put a Edelbrock Performer 4-barrel on it and an RPM manifold and all the things, and it was like, okay, I want to hop up this 289. But then you get to the point where you're like, okay, well, if I was going to do that, I'd build like a true hypo 289 or go to a big block in it. And then I'm changing all this stuff. And so I've kind of gone full circle to where that car, now I really want to take it back to probably as original as it can be. I might leave it with like an original Ford manifold and put the original Autolite, but a 4-barrel on it or something.
Yep.
Just so it's got a little bit more to it. But other than that, I'm like even going back, I have a chrome air cleaner and I'm thinking, man, I should repowder coat the factory one and put new decals on it and just go original. So when you pop the hood, it looks like it was off the showroom floor, and leave it at that.
Yeah. So that one's destined to go down the cruiser lane,
Yeah. Cause you're not going to, I have way faster cars. I'm never going to, it's never going to feel fast to me. I'm never going to drag race that thing. So why do it?
Yeah.
Nick, I have one more question for you on this patina argument. So, do you get behind the full patina paint jobs that are big money paint jobs to look patinaed, or are you? It's got to be the patina, right?
Yeah. So yes, I'll preface my answer with to each their own. Right.
Fair.
I don't want to be the guy that's like, oh, you shouldn't do that. I don't like that. But my style is probably leans toward the authentic side of things. Like, great, if your car's patina, it's patina, but the idea of spending huge amounts of money on a patina paint job defeats the purpose. Like, it's a little bit inauthentic to make something look like something that it isn't. It's like, either let it be patina, or if you've got all that money in the bank to spend on a nice paint job, just do that. Do that. That's my thought. But again,
they almost never look as good as a true patina. They
Yeah,
never come out
agree.
right.
Yeah.
You can tell. And so I get spend some money on clear coat if you really want it to stay the way it is, because that's a fraction of a paint job. You got no prep and you just throw clear on it.
Yeah.
But to spend that much money to try to make it look that way, I can't get behind it.
Yeah, it's not my thing. It is for some people, but not me.
I'm totally in your camp. To each his own. There is not a car style that I think I would hate on. That one is a tough one for me, though. And I have seen probably one or two that you're like, well, maybe. Oh, no, it's not. You know?
Yeah, exactly. That's probably my least favorite treatment on a car is the inauthentic patina for sure.
Yeah. Just fair. All right, in this section for you, we have one more question. What is your dream chassis and engine swap?
Ooh, that's a great question. I mean, so every car that I've ever built, I don't have in my budget a chassis swap. I haven't ever done, a custom chassis in anything except for the chassis swap on a truck, which is taking a different OEM chassis and retrofitting it to the body that I'm working with. S10 is a super popular one for all the like vintage of 40s and 50s Chevys and things that I'm into. So that's the obvious answer there. But the reality is that if it's my dream swap, I'm going with somebody that's Art Morrison or one of those high dollar frame builders to be able to get one out of the gate, custom built, ready to go, geometry's dialed in, got all the all the R&D has been done on it, and I'm buying one of those that are super expensive, more than anything I've ever paid for any project at all, and throwing one of those chassis on it. And
that's why it's a dream.
That's why it's a dream. And of course,
so what body are you putting on that chassis though?
So now we're basically saying what's my dream car, and that's a hard question, guys. That's one that you're likely going to get a different answer tomorrow. Today,
agreed.
Today, my dream car is based on what I already have, and then what I also still want. Which I really like my '65 Impala, and that if I didn't have that, that would be my dream car. So I have it, so I get to say something different. I'm more of a cruiser style, and so my dream setup would be an Art Morrison chassis, a '58 Chevy Impala convertible with a 348 tri-power engine, and probably bone stock, and literally like everything else except for the running gear is stock about that. Now, if this was something where I was trying to make something fast, immediately I'm twin turbo LS. Never had a twin turbo, never had forced induction anything, but I'm an LS fan and I want to, go down that path at some point. So there's going to be something turboed, twin turboed potentially, or compound turboed. Now that you're talking me into that, in the future from an LS standpoint, because I think that would be super cool.
That's awesome. Well, don't you have a convertible Impala?
Yeah, 66.
66. Okay.
Yeah. 58 is the first year Impala, and to me, that's like the one of the coolest, most quintessential cars ever.
The trunk and just the rear lines on that car.
They're so cool.
Are so good.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so anybody who's watching right now too, I want to see in the comments. I want to see what your ideal engine chassis combo would be. Like, what car would you stick what in if it was your dream build? Because I'm curious what other people are thinking. Josh, what would yours be?
I have a feeling our fan base might be slightly biased, and you're going to get a lot of 2JZ answers.
They might.
But you know what? My dream build is probably a truck, but I couldn't say what chassis it would be. It would probably end up being like an S10 or something because it's so common and so easy to do. I grew up, my dad had old Fords mostly, but he had one old Chevy, which is how the 62 kind of came to be. But I'm much like Nick. I'm a cruiser, but if it's going to be a truck, you got to be able to work. So it would probably be somewhere in the 5-window family, Chevy, something really reliable. Most likely it'd be an LS swap, and probably on a more modern chassis. But I've always wanted a bagged cruiser. And so it'd have to be on bags. I mean, that would be the ultimate dream, even for the 62, is go modern chassis, bag it, throw some big ass wheels on it, and just tow whatever I want and cruise whenever I want. My wife's the big 5-window fan, and I've always loved them growing up. That would be a dream for me. I couldn't nail it down to one thing, like Nick said. You ask me tomorrow and it's going to be a Ferrari Testarossa because that's what I always wanted growing up, right? So I'll find one for $30,000 on eBay and then drive it for a while and then build the truck.
Yeah. What's your dream car here?
I'm kind of in the same position as you. As I've got my dream chassis in the Mark III with a 2J in it, so it's already, it needs more money and time to get where I really want it to. But the base is there. It's mostly what I want. So next in line, I really, really want to do something with a Ford Barra. Like, that's calling to me.
Can we do an Escort?
That's probably my top of the list right now. Like, I want to do a Barra just because it's a Ford engine, and I'm like born and raised a Ford guy, but then I love Toyota too, and I love inline sixes. So the fact that there's a Ford inline six that's just so rad and so well engineered, I want to do something. I'm leaning towards, I really like an Escort because I always like the Fox body hatches. But an Escort would be so much cooler because it's smaller and you just don't see rear wheel drive swaps. It's all custom. You could really set up some cool suspension geometry. And so rear wheel drive swap and 80s Ford Escort GT with like the full package.
Yeah, I wish I had a picture of mine. We've never talked about it on the channel, I don't think, Nick. I don't even know if I've ever told you about it. But when I was in high school, we were all into these weird 80s hatchbacks, right? And so my one buddy, good friend, he was into the Omnis. And so he was chasing down the Turbo Omni. Then he started chasing down Shelbys. So I think he has 2 Shelby Omnis right now, a Shelby Charger. And he just puts ridiculous turbos on them.
Such odd balls.
Yeah. When we were in high school, they had a race. It was 8th mile. And he lined up against a Fox Body 5.0. And he hit his bumper on the ground and ripped the muffler off from first to second and pulled on the Mustang down the 8th mile, and it was on the local news. I mean, it was amazing. You can't make this up. It looks like he's driving his mom's car, front-wheel drive, turbo Omni, just spanking people. So my other buddy had an Escort GT, and I found one, and I bought it for, I don't know, $1,200 or $1,400 or something like that. And it was my college runaround car, and so my dream was always to rear-wheel drive swap it, put a 5.0 in it.
Yeah.
And the hood distance and firewall to bumper is very similar to the Fox body. Mm-hmm. And my buddy ended up working for a Ford dealership, and so they would do the trade-ins at night, and he would take off any aftermarket or damaged parts, and then they would put on new parts and put it out on the lot. So he ended up getting a bumper off of I want to say it was a 98. God, it might have been newer. It might have been the newer angle, like 01. Anyways, he got the front bumper off of a newer Mustang. It bolted straight onto my Escort and matched the headlight angle. So I was running Mustang bumper on this Ford Escort that, I mean, basically it was intake, exhaust, and cam like everyone did in high school. All the bolt-on stuff you could. Yeah. And we used to race that thing all over. And so we called our little race team was domestic imports, and we would just go seek out Hondas and try to beat them. I'm not kidding you.
That's so fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I in the comments, we were talking about what's your dream chassis, your car, platform, whatever, and what's your dream swap you'd put in it. And we want to see in the comments. I'm interested what your absolute dream build is, because there's some cool stuff and some combinations people don't think about.
Oh yeah. Well, and Josh, you just said it, but I think, I don't know if this is just me or other people as well, probably people on your guys' channel, like some of those like weird, quirky, like, 80s cars that weren't popular then that are just unique and look different. Like now they're just like super cool. They're standing out. Like you guys have the Datsun. I think that's been on the channel, but like just some of these weird little like hatchback stuff that's like super cool and unique, and you're not likely just, when going to the grocery store, you're not likely to pass another one. I just think those are cool, and it feels like they're making a little bit of a comeback now.
Definitely.
I've seen one around town. Somebody has a manual turbo Plymouth minivan from the 80s run around, and that thing is, it moves. I try to chase him down the freeway on ramp, and it goes.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That would be something, though. There's got to be like, the 2JZ boat, something like that. Someone's got to have in mind. Mm-hmm. Excuse me.
Yeah.
All right. So Ryan always likes to finish on a series of questions. So we've got a couple for you here. We'll kind of try to speed round them a little bit, I think. So
on these, as we go through the questions, I want to see people in the comments what their pick is too, because I'm curious if they match what we're thinking.
I love the Busso swap the Yugo.
Ooh.
There you go.
That's almost cooler than a Starlet because they're just so like. I think the Yugo's even tinier.
Did you have you ever seen Scotty's Starlet? We've never had. Oh, we did have it on the channel at one point, but he Busso swapped the Starlet, or at least that was his plan. I think he was at ITV's at that point. I don't know if he had swapped it yet. But he put a picture up that we shared, and it was his toolbox at work hiding the Starlet because it's longer and taller than his car.
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right. So would you rather, and we will take viewer feedback, obviously, 68 Camaro or 68 Mustang?
Obviously, Camaro for me. That's obvious.
You're a Chevy guy. There's no way you're going the other way.
Yeah.
What about you, Josh? What are you doing?
Well, it's got to be the Camaro. I'm sorry. You know, that was my first car I ever bought with my own hard-earned money. It's got to be the Camaro.
I'm going Mustang, especially if it's fastback.
Yeah. Fastback Mustang. And that's fair. There's no wrong answer here. Let's be honest.
You can drive that into this dome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, Nick, this is a softball.
Okay.
70 Chevelle, 70 Challenger.
Ooh.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. Both super cool cars. But again, I'm going GM over Mopar. The Challenger is super, super sweet, but 70 Chevelle, is there a more quintessential muscle car than a 70 Chevelle? I contest that there may not be. So there you go. 70 Chevelle is my answer.
There's so many out there, and there's so many different builds on them. I think you're right with that. Half Fast Garage says Challenger all the way, and I'm going to have to agree with them because my 7-year-old son thinks that's the meanest looking car he's ever seen.
Yeah.
I think I'm going Challenger too.
Yeah.
All right.
I just remember, like, granted, I was a Ford guy growing up, but I just remember seeing so many Chevelles at car shows. And so I totally agree with Nick. They're so iconic, and there's so many, like, well-done ones out there. And it's a great-looking car, but I don't see as many Challengers, and I really love the lines of that, too.
Yeah.
I hope we can still be friends, Nick, but I feel the same way. Everybody I grew up with, you know, at the car show scene had Deuce Coupes. They were everywhere, a dime a dozen. They're cooler than hell. I will never own one.
Yeah.
I'll never own one. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the same with Ryan and the Chevelle. You see them, I hate to say a dime a dozen because that's not fair, but there's a lot.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you could make the argument that they're played out. But in the same way that you say, oh man, I had, you know, posters of a Ferrari Testarossa, and that's your
Absolutely.
car, and if given the opportunity, you'd be behind the wheel in 2 seconds of one.
2 seconds.
I kind of am that same way for really the Gen 1 Camaro that you gave me an option for, right? Sweet car, 70 Chevelle. Like, there's just a handful of cars that's like, oh, that's a gimme. Of course I would have that. I don't care how played out it is. I don't care if everyone on the street buys one. If I love them. I do love them.
Yours will still be yours.
Mine will be mine, and rest assured, it'll be different than the neighbors for sure. Yeah.
That's exactly right. I had in junior high, my buddy's dad who built hot rods bought him a 69 Camaro for his birthday, and they worked on it all the way up until he turned 16, and he handed him the keys. That's what he drove. You know, orange, white stripes, the whole thing. I mean, amazing.
Yep.
All right, here we go. This one might be a tough one. I think I know where you guys are going to go with this, but we are to 67 GTO or 67 Galaxy 500.
GTO in a heartbeat. Easily. I mean, I'm a fan of all year GTOs, 64 being the first year, you know, being the body of the Tempest, but 67 might be one of my favorite year GTOs. I just like how they become long and stretched out. I believe 67, somebody's going to correct me for sure here if I'm wrong, that first year of the vertical headlights, is that on 67?
Second year.
66
So
vertical?
64 or 65, let's see.
Uh-oh. Somebody's going to jump in and be like, yeah, you guys.
Don't forget, Ryan, the name of his YouTube channel is Classic Nation.
Yeah.
60, I forget what it's, 67 I know is they changed the body style from 66
64
to
and
70.
65
Yeah.
were body, and 66 and 67. That's when they rolled the back fender more, gave it a little more curves.
Yeah, I forget what they changed
And
on
I
the
think
front.
they changed I think the headlights were the same. With the
Both vertical?
The like iconic X grill, you know.
Yeah.
With the two scoops.
with
the
two
center.
headlights though on each
Yeah.
side, top on bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I kind of forget. I do like all those years. I forget the grill on the 67, but I mean, Galaxies are super cool, but I mean, Galaxy doesn't have the muscle car cachet that a GTO has. So I'm GTO.
Agreed. I got to catch up here. Half-Fast Garage, back to the Challenger, says 71, 426, 4-speed, done.
Yeah. Can't go wrong.
Agreed.
And- Agree, exactly.
That's a good way to do it. That's a good way.
And
To
on the goat question, he picks the goat for sure. So I am really torn on this one. I'm not going to lie. This one is difficult for me. I've always been a big Galaxy fan, but in high school shop, we built a drag car. I think it was a 68, but I'm not certain on that. GTO for 8th mile drags. And so that kind of has a special place for me. I think I would choose GTO.
Yeah, you'd be in good company if you did. So yeah.
Hey, thank you. Ryan?
Being a Ford guy, I'd go GTO as well on that one.
Yeah.
Oh, surprised
Yeah.
me a little bit.
Yeah, I picked these questions. If it was a 67 Fairlane, I'd be a little tighter of a race, but I still think I might edge out the GTO. It's just really iconic, and 67 is probably my favorite year of all time of the GTO.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people like the Judge, and the later ones have gotten really popular lately,
Yeah.
especially, but those earlier body styles,
Yep.
they're just so good.
The length, I mean, it's just, there's too much not to like.
Yep.
All right, next one. We got 57 Bel Air versus 57 Crown Vic.
57 Bel Air is another one of my dream cars, quintessential classic car. I mean, when somebody says, hey, you have an old car, somebody who's not around old cars all the time, the first car in my mind that somebody thinks about is a 57 Chevy, right? Like if somebody who knows nothing about old cars says, oh, I have a classic car, I feel like that's the car that comes up in somebody's mind. Probably the most quintessential classic car. So I would have a 57 Chevy in 2 seconds over a lot of things. Yeah.
I totally agree, but I have to fuel the fire here. What color?
Ooh. In my mind right now, as I was thinking about what my 57 Chevy would be, it would be red. But that's super played out, and that's the quintessential color. Mine would have to be different than somebody else's, and it would have different treatment so that you would know this one from every other 57 that you've ever seen restored and done up to the teeth. So I'm thinking twin turbo, LS, lowered, super wide wheels, super wide, like, 15 by 10s in the back with, 295s or 305s, something crazy diameter, maybe 15 by 12s, like kind of race style. And it would be dark blue. That would be my color of that car.
That'd be a good color.
Yeah. Dark
Yeah.
blue. Yeah.
One off dark blue, Chevy dark blue.
Yep. Exactly. Lowered. Way more than it should be lowered. Lowered so much that the old guys who were around then are like, why
that's too low.
He ruined this car. But for the folks younger and now we're middle age would be like, oh, that's interesting. I haven't seen one like that. That's how you know you've done it right.
I think my heart wants to say the Crown Vic, but there is so many ways to do a Bel Air right.
Yeah.
You can't screw it up. I mean, you just can't. And that is probably the head turner that you said, the quintessential classic car is the 57 Chevy. You can't go against it. Ryan, what say you?
I think on 57, I'd go Crown Vic because you don't see them. Like
Nick just left the building. He's done with the conversation.
You never
Wrong answer.
You never see the 50s Fairlanes, especially that's a Crown Vic with like all the trimmings.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen. So I'd have to go.
They're beautiful cars, and you don't see them anywhere.
No, they're just I'm one of the weird ones. Give me a 56 Bel Air over a 57. I'll take it any day.
Yeah.
The 56 line, like you see 57s that's the car that everybody
Yeah.
scooped up to make nice. So you see them at car show, even though they're rare.
Yeah.
And they're getting real hard to find.
Yeah.
You see one at every single car show.
Yep.
But when I see a 56 with like the spearhead lines
Mhm.
rather than the fin,
Yep.
it's like I think I like that better. So I don't know. I'm a weird one on that. On
Yeah.
the years
The thing with the 57 is it doesn't matter what year it is. In everyone's mind that walks past, it's a 57 Chevy. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter what trim it is. It doesn't matter if it's
Right,
a
sure.
Polaris.
Yeah.
It's a 57 Chevy. I don't care what it is.
That's right.
That's what every dad told his kid that he thought he knew what he was looking at. Looking at.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a 57 Chevy.
Yeah.
It's just what you do.
Yeah, 57 Chevy or a 32 Ford, right?
Exactly. Those are the only two hot rods ever made.
Yeah. Well,
So
and
Half
again-
Ass Garage had a 57, but he says this one's pretty tough.
yeah, it is tough. Here's also the reason why I say 57 Chevy is, and again, I'm probably going to slaughter this and somebody's going to correct me, but 57, I believe, was Chevy's first year of V8. And I think that was the debut of the 283, which was the introduction of V8 for Chevrolet, which, again, if you think, oh, Chevy V8, again, quintessential for all of muscle cars and powered every powerful Chevy through the late 50s, early 60s. 57 Chevy, I believe, was that first introduction of that 283, which was pretty cool.
You're getting fact checked on this one. I can feel it.
I always get, I'm used to getting fact checked. And again, I feel like that didn't happen in 56, and they certainly had a V8 before 58, which was the introduction of the 348, which was the first big block for Chevy the year after that. So again, take that with a grain of salt, but I think that's my memory.
Are you thinking across all Chevy, like their entire line?
Just Chevy, not all GM. I think.
What about the Vet? What year did the Vet get the V8?
Well, Corvettes came out in 1953, the very first year. Their first V8, let me think about that. I think that's a great question. I potentially 57 or 58. Potentially 57 or 58.
I know it had to be 57.
That's which would make sense. So when they rolled a new big block out, it typically went to the entire assembly line. Again, somebody's going to tell me, Corvette folks especially, if anybody ever stumbles across this, is going to be like, oh, what the heck? These guys didn't know that. 57 or 58, I suspect was the first V8. Probably the second it was available, they probably put one in a Corvette.
I agree.
They should have. They didn't.
We're just about to your Corvette question, but we have a viewer Corvette question. So I think I know where I stand on this one, and this one is really, really tough. So I'll let you guys go first. Nick, I'm going to make you think about this for a minute. So
Okay.
Ryan,
Okay.
69 Charger, 69 Stingray.
You get to go first.
I'm going with the Stingray. I really like the Chargers, but I have to go with this. Despite being raised and born and bred a Ford guy, there was a long period of my life when I was probably 7 to 13 years old where the Stingray was my dream car. I wanted a 68 Roadster Stingray with the 427.
Yeah.
That was it. And it had to be a 67 or 68 because that is the best year of the Stingray Corvette by far. And in my opinion, back then, it was the best year of the Corvette of all time.
Yeah.
Just because it had the gills.
Yep.
Your dad has is it 70 or 71?
71.
71. So he has the last year of the good vets as far as I'm concerned.
Correct.
Because it has front and rear steel bumpers.
Correct. Exactly.
And 72, they started tucking the front bumper.
Yep. And actually 72 is the last year steel front and rear. 73 fiberglass front bumper, steel rear bumper.
Yep,
74 fiberglass.
Yep. They did that
Close.
1 year where they tucked the front and left the back.
Yep.
But so that was 68 was the year for me. I loved the gills.
Yep.
For the vents on the
This
front
called
fenders.
the shark body.
Body style.
Yeah.
Your dad's is, in my opinion, the second best where they went to the grill.
Yeah.
The chrome grills.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'd have to go with the vet.
Yeah. That's a tough question for me. 68, 69 Charger, or
It's tough.
you said 69 Vet, I think. Again, I have to think about it through different lenses. The 69 Charger is going to have a way higher retail value, even though 69 vets are super cool. Chargers have skyrocketed. Like those are hen's teeth. People having a project car listed for like, twice what it's worth because they know it's a Charger and they know, it's just quintessential. Dukes of Hazzard, we have to thank for a lot of the Chargers being super expensive and everybody wanting those.
And them ruining about 200 of them.
Correct, yeah. But the ones they ruined also probably had an equal impact on their favorability from just like people seeing them and wanting them. Like, is there a better setup? Again, I'm a Chevy guy, and so to say this is quite the heavy lift here. Is there a better setup than a 69 Charger with a 440 pistol grip 4-speed? Like, does it get any better than that? Just to mob around in that? And again, when I think about being behind the wheel, you got to find a dirt road. You got to Dukes of Hazzard it. You got to make it happen. So that's something I wouldn't do behind the wheel of that same Corvette. I probably am going to say Charger only because I have the ability to borrow my dad's Corvette as it is. So it's kind of unfair for me to say that. I've got big plans for that Corvette, and I love that body style. But again, just like I keep saying, these Chevy cars are quintessential. 69 Charger, absolutely got to be on the top of somebody's muscle car list. So I picked the Charger.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm Charger all the way for the same reasons. Dukes of Hazzard was my childhood and why I do dumb things in dirt with cars. It's for me, that's the one. There's no chance. I would love to say the Corvette. Corvette's a beautiful car. My buddy's dad growing up had a 72, I think it was. And back then I couldn't fit in it. So there's no way I could drive it. You know, it's like, I got to go with the Charger.
Yep.
All right. Thank you for that.
Was right.
Okay.
So the
here we go.
Corvette had the 265. So it did have a V8.
The which one?
The 54.
265 V8. Okay. So I was wrong in saying that the V8 had
Chevy. But
okay. So I think 67.
But I think it was the 283 was
the first V8. Okay. So I kept saying it was the first V8. It wasn't, obviously. It was the first 283. 265 had been around for years before. So
you're getting banned from YouTube.
I'm glad you caught me and not somebody else. So I do stand corrected, and I'm happy to be corrected.
Okay. So another Corvette for you. 57 Vet, 57 Thunderbird.
57 Thunderbird doesn't do much for me, but quite frankly, a 57 Vet is kind of in an in-between year of, being super high on my list. Any Vet is going to be cool because it's valuable, but I probably would never own one to keep one. 57, 63 Corvette I like, 67 Corvette I like, 65 across the board I like. I certainly like that Corvette. And the early, very first Corvettes I really like. 57 being an in-between year, I would take it over the T-Bird. T-Birds I'm not a huge fan of. 57 is the last year of the two-seat T-Bird. 58, I believe they went to. Again, don't fact check me. Keep your phone down. 58, they made them way bigger. They changed them totally. So I do like the last of the two-seat T-Birds, which were super, super cool. But I probably do take the Vet in this case.
It's interesting that you like the C1 Corvette body style, because most people like the 57 and even the 60, the later 60, 61, 62s over that.
Yeah, I don't like. There's just some kind of some car. There's only a few cars that everybody else is generally agreed upon that these are sweet looking cars, and I'm kind of take it or leave it. And that's one of those. I like the early Vets, and I like the C3s essentially.
Yeah. What's your choice, Josh?
It's Thunderbird, and not that I have anything against those Corvettes. They're very classy. Very good-looking cars. I'm sure they're fun drivers, but there is something like a different level of sophistication that comes with the Thunderbird in my mind. And I don't know if that year was one of those teal kind of off bluish green color years.
They're pretty for that teal.
You know what? That color in a Thunderbird has always been high up on my list, and I don't know why. There's no justification to it. It's just something about it caught my eye when I was a kid, and it's like that would be super cool to own.
Yep, I like that. What about you? What's your choice, Ryan?
This might be the toughest one, and I set myself up, and I wasn't sure what I would pick because the reason is both these cars have a lot of sentimental for me, like for getting a car. Because you can see the bottom of these photos right above me. About half of these are kind of modern photos of me doing BoostRodeo stuff, and a lot of them are of like my grandfather. And so he had a 56 Corvette or 56 Thunderbird that was black, and then he traded that in for a brand new 57 that was white. So he had both cars. So there's a lot of photos. That was one of his favorite cars he owned his entire life. And so there's tons of pictures of my mom and my uncle growing up in that 56 and that 57. And so that car has always been, he always loved Thunderbirds. And he had, when they repopped them and remade them, he had one of the new Thunderbirds. It was like a deep maroon with a black top, gorgeous. But my dad also had a 57 Corvette that was white with silver inserts on the inset. It was probably the best color I've ever seen on one.
That sounds like a great combination.
He had a couple 62s. And so I'm really torn on that car because both of them were one of the cars that like my grandfather loved and always talked about. Every time we went to a car show and saw one. And same thing with my dad. He loved that 57 Vet. And unfortunately, somebody ran him off the road and he rolled it.
Jeez.
Oh,
and
not good.
Well, I don't know how to expect anyone to make a decision on something so sentimental when you have almost identical stories between the two. Like for me, the Thunderbird was a go-to from a childhood memory, right? The Charger's a go-to from a childhood memory. You put two in the same category, you really set yourself up.
Yeah, but Josh, we can't let him off the hook. He came up with the questions. We deserve an answer. What is it going to be?
I think I'd go with the Thunderbird.
Okay.
Slightly.
Okay.
Yeah, I like it. I like it.
You can't go wrong with either car. I think we could all agree on that.
Yeah, those are both two pretty
All right,
good.
we got a couple quick ones here. LS versus Coyote. Brian.
I really like the Coyote. I don't know. The LS is so much easier. God.
I think beer just came out of his nose.
I thought you said Coyote.
I did, because I mean that the LS you can get in a junkyard. You can't find a Coyote in a junkyard. That's for damn sure.
No.
I think the Coyote, because I think we're just starting to see what they're gonna do, and so I'm excited for that. And I like the fact that it's dual overhead cam and it's a modern engine. Granted, the LS has some incredible engineering for being a pushrod motor. Like it's as far as they could take a pushrod motor. I'll give them that. But I mean, the Coyote's running 8s on a stock block right now. And so and it hasn't been out that long. So I'm excited to see what they do with them.
Nick, I'll bring you back to the conversation. It's a no-brainer. It's LS. You could do whatever you want, any mod, anything you want. You could buy parts at 7-Eleven, for God's sake. They're so common.
Right.
Just build the LS.
Thank you. I can't even. Yeah, I can't. I mean, it's hard to even respond to that. I mean, sure, if you want to spend twice the price for half the power, go Coyote. Absolutely, I recommend it. If you have any sense about you and you have any, you care about the money that you spend and what it actually does from a return on investment standpoint, you're likely going to choose a Chevy LS engine over a Coyote. And I don't care what platform you're starting with. That is a smart choice. So
I'm not saying I'm not intrigued by the Coyote, and it is very cool. Yeah, but for practicality's sake, you're building an LS.
Yeah, I mean, again, for the builds that I get involved in, and for most people, right? Unless money is no object, then I don't even think the Coyote gets to be a contender. Because from a practicality standpoint, I don't think you can even get a Coyote for approaching half the cost of what you could a comparable LS at the same power level. Like the reality is that you don't. There isn't Coyotes in a junkyard, and even if you grabbed, certainly from Ford, but any wrecked Mustang, you're probably going to pay twice the amount you could for a junkyard LS, and you're not even going to be much above, if at all, the power level. That's talking pre-boost. You guys have seen the articles, right? Twin turbo, an LS, junkyard LS. They did that years ago, and they thought it was a 5.3 block, and it ended up being a 4.8 block, and it was like 1,200 horsepower out of a junkyard LS, and they ran out of fuel, nothing else. The block didn't give, and it was like, oh man, that block could be got for a couple $100. Like, good luck finding a Coyote that gets you close to that. So.
All right, we got to add in from a viewer here, and I'm going to play on it a little bit. Ryan, Barra versus LS.
Ooh, I'm going Barra all day.
I knew you would. It was too easy. That's
not even a question. Like, why do you need 8 cylinders when you can do it in 6?
In a line. They're in a line.
Yeah.
Too funny. Okay. One more on this, and then I'm going to jump back on one of the viewer ones. Nick, Fox body, F body.
By F body, I meant like 3rd gen Camaro.
3rd gen, yeah.
I know what you're going to go. This isn't even a question, is it?
No. Although it's maybe I'm thinking about it more than you might think. So I kind of like Fox body. I like that platform. I've never had one, but that's like a lot of people's first foray into like performance cars. That was like, people our age group, that was their starter car that got them into that. And I kind of like those. I kind of like Fox bodies and how adaptable they are, how economical it is. It's like one of the cheapest platforms to be able to go fast is a Fox body. Certainly the F body, the Gen 2, let's call it Camaros, if that's what we're talking about, F bodies. Right?
Gen 3 would be
so 80 something.
Yeah, I had like the IROC Camaros.
Okay.
And that's like
Gen 3.
Body,
Yeah. Okay.
Same period.
Yeah, I mean that's going to be a toss-up. I might even say Fox body and surprise you because Gen 2 F bodies, right? 70 to
late 70s.
78, and so now we're talking 79 and on.
That's what the Mustang 2s. And that's no contest.
Yeah.
Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
Even being a Ford guy.
So the 79 and up Camaros don't really do a whole lot for me. I mean, they're platforms that were they were popular, they're well supported, but they don't have the cool factor that I think, and the approachability factor for a ton of people that the Fox bodies had. So now if it was Gen 2 F bodies, I'm there all the way. But in this case, I'll go your Fox body. I'll surprise you here.
Okay.
Ryan.
I'm going Fox body. I always really liked the hatchback Fox. I mean, so in high school, my dad had a convertible 5.0 HO, straight piped, just H'd back, loud as shit, but it was an auto. And I drove that thing for a while and had way too much fun and pushed that car way, way too hard. But it was always a blast to drive and just took everything with a grain of salt. And I've always liked the hatchback ones. So Fox body.
I think I'll surprise you here a little bit myself. So my first car was an 82 Camaro. Drove it to literally its own death, ripped the axle off one time on the freeway. I mean, just dumb kid stuff. Thing drove like a slot car. It was on rails, incredibly underpowered, but on rails.
Yeah.
But I'm taking the Fox body.
Yeah.
Whoa.
I'm taking the Fox body for much the same reasons Nick stated.
Yeah, unanimous. Look at that.
Unanimous. I know. It's so iconic. The 5.0. I mean, there's just too many good things in that camp that I really can't go with my Camaro roots, oddly enough.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. I'm going to save these last two for a minute. Half-Ass Garage asked, 72 Bronco, 72 Scout.
Oh, I have the easy answer there. I love Scouts because they're the poor man's Bronco, and I'm the poor man that would get the Scout because I can get a Scout. If somebody has a beat on a 72 Bronco, send me the link. I mean, those are the cool Broncos are super sweet, right? The price on Broncos
it's insane.
has tripled in the last 4 years, right? A Project Bronco, good luck. Good luck even getting one.
Yeah.
They're super cool. I have always liked them. I don't dislike the Scout. I like the Scout as a good platform. The Bronco has the cachet. It has the cool factor that the Scout doesn't have. The Scout's approachable. I would definitely take the Bronco because in my mind, I can't peel out the fact that it has quadruple or quintuple the resale value, right? And that's like, the Bronco is like, You
And
could
the
build
lines are just good.
totally. You could build the same Scout for a quarter of the price as a Bronco.
Let me throw this into your decision process. Full
Okay.
removable top, half door Blazer.
So K2.
So a
Yeah.
K2 Blazer of the same vintage or of
Yeah, I think I don't know if in 72 if it had the half door or the full door
Yeah.
though.
Yeah.
okay. I'm still going Bronco only because I'm
Okay.
gonna bandwagon Ford here and say that the Broncos are super cool. I like their lines. You know, I'll never give Ford credit that I don't have to, but I have to give them credit for the style and the lines of that. You know, those Broncos. They're super sweet. And
Are you on the wait list for the new one?
nah, I'm not a big fan of the new Bronco. I'm not. I wasn't a big fan of the new FJ Cruisers. I wasn't a big fan of I'm not a big fan of the Defenders.
Yeah.
Take every one of those and go early, and I love those. I love the body styles. I love the FJs, the FJ40s. I love early Defender 110s and 90s. You know, those early vintages I like, and I'm having a tough time accepting those new versions.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Ryan, Bronco, Scout.
So Bronco and Scout, hands down the Bronco. The lines are just so much better. The Scout's always been kind of just so smooth. Like the sides of that just don't. They're so much cheaper. So I get where you're coming from there. Like if you want something to go bean on in the woods and 4x, go get a Scout.
Yeah.
If you want something really, really cool, get a Bronco. Josh, you threw the K2 in there, which I might surprise you guys. I think the K2 beats it for me.
I'm with you. It's no surprise to me on the K2. There's a year, and I don't remember what year, where they went to the full metal door, and then they went to the half top or whatever they called that. But the full removable top, half door, not full frame door, wins it for me. In the Bronco Scout conversation, it's got to be Scout. I mean, I hate to say it. If you have a nice Bronco, you're not doing anything with it. You're too afraid to do it. You know what I mean? The Scout is going to be your driver. So that's where I'm at.
I think that's the biggest reason I like the K2s too. So I think all the K2s were full removable top, full removable door. And when they went to the K5 body style, I think that's when they had the half top, right?
What's the year range of K2 then?
60, it's 7 or 8 to 72.
Okay, so it is 67 if it follows the line of the truck.
It's the line of the truck.
So 67 to 72 is that.
It's just
truck.
like going to the K5 truck where you went from the the rounded sides to
67 to
a square
72.
body essentially.
Yep.
And so the K5s were a square body,
Yep.
and that's when it came a half top.
Yep, 67 to 72.
Yeah,
cool.
But I think, Josh, to your point, the biggest reason is the K2 was a full size truck where the Bronco was pretty small. So the K2 you can just use. You can tow your boat to the lake with the K2 and go have a weekend with the top down, and it's amazing. And throw the kids in the back. The Bronco, it's just a small. Like it's fun to go hunting with and off roading and stuff, but they're so expensive now that yeah.
I mean,
I like the Broncos a lot though too.
Yeah, the reality is that I will never own a Bronco. In more practical terms, I'm probably more likely to own a Scout, and they're super sweet. I mean, they're all really buildable platforms. I think that's the key. Is like you could kind of do whatever you want. But Josh, you hit the nail on the head. Nobody with a fully restored 72 Bronco that's got nice paint is actually using it the way that it should be used. And almost everybody is using their Scouts the way they should be used. You know what I mean?
And it's not to say that people aren't having fun in their Broncos, but it's
sure.
You're driving it around town. You're taking it to the car show. You're taking the wife for a ride on Sunday.
Totally.
Not what it was designed for. You want to see Ole's Bronco going down the Baja Peninsula, jumping every other whoop.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like
that's what you want to see. I want to see the Bronco right alongside your Raider racing through the dunes, hitting the whoops, throwing sand everywhere. I want to see him use it.
All right, so we got to find one now. Somebody willing to do that.
Yeah.
You've got to go for a ride in that thing yet.
I know. I do. I know.
You know, it is the most uneventful, underpowered thing on the road, but the challenging part is on dirt. The faster you go, the better it gets.
Yeah.
So you just can't be afraid.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Your guys, the video you guys shot out of the dunes, like makes me want to like literally tag along on one of your weekends out there and go for a ride. That looks like so much fun.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
It's very easy to make happen because I need someone to drive the Jeep down there.
Perfect. Well, you
There
don't
you
have to twist my arm to drive your Jeep, so you know where to find me.
Perfect. Okay, a couple more. We'll try to wrap up. We really appreciate you coming on and spending time with us. I know we're all pretty close in general, but this platform is really fun for this. So it's already been 90 minutes. We always try to keep it to an hour, usually go to 2, so we're not very good at that. But so Ford GT40 versus first gen GT. Are you talking about like GT90?
No, so basically the GT supercar.
The first GT supercar.
Which series of the GT supercar would you pick? Because the first was the
First,
GT40,
second, or third.
and then later it was just the Ford GT, and there's 2 gens of that now.
Right.
So Nick, what would you take? Would you take the 60s Ford, the GT40?
Without a doubt, the GT40. I'm too much of a muscle car freak, and that's also a quintessential supercar. Likely the first supercar that started everything, started the hypercar supercar trend. That's the car to take. I wouldn't go a newer version of that. Somebody handed one to me, sure, I'll drive it, I'll take it. But if I had the choice and I can only pick one, GT40.
289, like the later race spec one, or the 427? I think I know what you're going with, but
So in that car, I would probably take whatever the authentic engine option was. I know
it was both.
I know at the beginning. I mean, of course, if somebody's like, "Oh, here's your supercar," you want the small block,
engine,
or you want the giant
block?
427? That's an easy answer. So 427. Yeah.
I had to Google the GT90. I did not realize that never went to production. So the supercar that Ford should have built was a concept vehicle in the early 90s. So I thought that's where you were going with that generation. But I'm taking the new one. Sorry. I love the old one. I'm taking the new one. I'll probably have to ride on the wing somewhere. Just strap me to it and someone else can drive it.
Yeah, that's probably true. Yeah, this is a tough one. I think it's no contest. You're either taking the GT40 or you're taking the Series 2 GT, because nobody wants the 5.4 liter. I mean, granted, it was a really good line.
Yeah.
It was a gorgeous car still, the reboot, the Series 1 GT, but nobody wants that 5.4 liter supercharged engine. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
I think I would take the new one as well, only because as much as like I would, if somebody said you can drive one once, like I will let you drive my car, I would take the GT40 just because being able to drive like the most iconic, like you said, supercar of all time.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's my kids knocking on the door. I would take that, like the chance to get behind the wheel of that. There's going to be something just vintage and really cool about that. But if you're handing me a car, I think I'd rather have the new one because I would be less afraid to put miles on it because it's a newer, granted it's a fortune, but I like the platform.
Yeah.
I love how incredibly aggressive they went with it and the aerodynamics and the downforce and all the things they put into it. I really like the EcoBoost motor, so I'm a huge fan of the 3.5 liter twin turbo. And I think I would just beat on that car on the track like nobody's business. Whereas you give me the original one, it's going to sit in the garage.
For sure.
So for that reason, I think I'd go with the new one.
You know, I agree with you. And it's funny, in the Bronco conversation, I think you don't use it for what it should be used for. In the GT conversation, I think you drive the 40. I mean, I really do. I'm not saying you're going to drive to work and back, but you might go run a classic track day, you know. You're going to drive it around to the shows. I think you drive it. My problem is that car, and this is going to sound terrible for this channel. I'm sorry, Nick. I love your channel. It is so raw. When I'm in a supercar, I want to be bolted in that thing, rock solid. And that 40 is just so raw. And maybe I'm getting old. I don't know. I feel kind of like, I need some comforts in there or something.
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head, right? If we're talking about our daily driver car that we have to live with just one, you're going to probably go a modern car. But if you get to choose a car that doesn't have to be your primary mode of transportation and gets to be the car that you get to take out as frequently or infrequently as you want on the weekends to use how you want, then it kind of opens up the door. Like, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
The idea of beating on an original Ford at like some nostalgia track day is super. Does it get any better than that?
I
Like, that'd
agree.
be the coolest thing ever. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went for a ride in an R8 recently, and the luxury supercar thing has a hold on me. I don't know why, but it was nice.
Yeah, I can see how it would be. Having never been in an R8 before.
Well, believe it or not, I could fit in the passenger seat. I didn't try the other side.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a 6-speed V8, so not the V10, but
Yeah.
okay. Last one. What vet generation is the best?
I think we already hashed this one more thoroughly than I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a lot of vet questions.
We did.
So I'm the generation, I think I'm C3, which covers 63
Yeah.
and to 67.
Yep.
So I'm
The original Stingray.
the
Up
original.
to the split window.
Correct. And
Yeah.
so that's probably the generation I'm going to go with. I love the C4, which is 68 to 72. I love those, which is what my dad has, which is the one I'm going to be working in and upgrading the suspension and doing the whole deal on. But from just a cool factor, 63 split window tugs on my heartstrings, and the C3 Corvette is where I am.
Ryan.
As much as I said, my dream car at one point was the 68 Corvette Stingray I wanted a roadster. I wanted a convertible.
Mhm.
I think because of the sentimental factor, like I said, that 57, if I could have a 57 that was white and silver like my dad had, I would take that. So that's probably my choice. Honestly, today, this second, if you were going to give me one, my second choice that would be very, very tough is a C8 because I really, really like them.
I was wondering if that was going to come up. That is a great looking car. It is a big step for Chevy.
If I didn't have the sentimental factor, like to have a 57 to go take my dad for a ride tomorrow, if you're going to hand me one and say, this is as close as I can get to your car, it's got to be a C8. Like, because I'm not so much a Corvette purist, and that car is just an animal. Like, Chevy built something that's amazing.
Yeah, agreed there.
In the Corvette world, I think I'm probably in the third gen, was 68 up or so, something like that. 6-pack, side pipes, black or bright red, doesn't matter. And you're just making a statement. I mean, everyone loves the older ones, obviously. Like I said before, buddy of mine's dad had one, and it was set up just like that. And that thing is loud when it shows up. It's doing it right. So I think that's for me. And I think the C8's a close second for much of the same reasons that I would take the GT, right? It's a big step from Chevy. It's going to be an iconic car for years to come. I think that's a close second.
Yeah.
We have a comment, TDI swapped XJ daily driver. That sounds interesting.
That actually sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, I know.
What is it now?
TDI
Turbo
swapped
diesel.
XJ.
Interesting.
Yeah, that sounds rad.
XJ like the Cherokee?
That's what I'm assuming, yes.
Yeah. Jeep Cherokee platform.
Yeah.
That would be pretty cool. That would be gnarly, right? Diesel power on an XJ platform.
Yeah, I like the 1J and 2J swapped Forerunners you see online.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
I do like that, although I don't know. Like, I like my one buddy. He's got a 7M swapped Forerunner. I think that's almost a better move because it makes more torque than the 2J.
Yeah, boosted too, right?
Yeah. I mean, call me crazy, but like you want something in a crawler, you want it to make torque. You don't want to have to rev it. So 2J is not my ultimate choice for that. I actually really like the diesel options. Like if you could get, I always wanted a diesel Hilux, which is essentially a Forerunner. If you get the right, the right package for it. I always wanted one of those with the diesel swap.
I was thinking you were going to say a diesel rabbit truck, but that's fine.
I also see some Barra comments. Yeah. So, super culture. Yeah, we were commenting on. I absolutely love the Barra. I wish we got him here, and I really need to get one in my garage just to put it in something.
So Nick, what's next? What's the next project? Where are we at with Impala?
What's going on in Classic Nation? What we could expect, and why people should go subscribe right now?
Yeah, well, we do a lot of classic car content, so it's, I mean, literally everything. We kind of don't overproduce stuff, right? Like a lot of our videos aren't as great and polished as what your guys' are, but we're and that's a compliment to you guys on your channel here, if you didn't catch that. But it's kind of the stuff that we do. I mean, we have like some random stuff. Like a week ago, my dad impulse purchased a 51 Cadillac, and it's already like rat rotted out and lowered. It's in front of my house right now. And I just threw up a video of that, the walk around video, like super random project. I also purchased a new TKX transmission from Tremec, the new 5-speed. I'm going to be doing that conversion in my 65 Impala, swapping that from an automatic, the 4L80E, over to that TKX. So that's coming up.
It's going to be so much more fun.
Super cool. Yeah, I'm so stoked for that. Evan's got the Mustang project stuff happening, his 67 fastback with, like I said, the crazy engine and the T56 Magnum going in that.
427. It's an Eliminator. Is that what the block's called? I thought I heard him say it.
So that was Illuminator was the one he was going to go with. That's like a high dollar, like aluminum, basically Coyote type engine. That he was going to go with that, and now he's
going with the Dart,
the Dart 427 with a boreless stacked injection and a T56 Magnum tranny. So we've got that going. We've got his project truck, his 53 Chevy. We've got my 47 Fleetline that's going to get air ride, the full chassis treatment. Just a ton of like random stuff. Classic car stuff is what we put on our channel, and it's the stuff that we have that we're working on that we get our hands on. So, yeah, pretty cool stuff. Anybody who is on your channel that's interested in that, feel free to join.
So I just pulled up the video of this 51 Cadillac. Is your dad driving it? He bought a driver?
It drives, dude. How crazy is that? Yeah. We drove it on the trailer, and the guy was like, oh, yeah, no, the guy I bought it from said it ran and drove perfectly. Brakes worked, started first try, drove it onto the trailer. Like that's most of the projects we get. I'm cranking the come along onto the trailer until I'm like dripping in sweat. And this one's the first one in a long time that we actually drove onto a trailer. How crazy is that?
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, that means it had air in the tires, for God's sake. It actually went right on the trailer.
Totally out of character for us to buy something with air in the tires that actually moves, let alone rolls under its own power. Crazy. Right. Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, this thing is super cool. I can't wait to check out this video.
Yeah.
We've done both versions of that because we've gotten things that don't run but roll, and we got something that ran but it didn't roll because the tires were off the beads and we drove it on anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's always nice to buy things out of a tow yard with a winch line available too. They're very helpful at getting things on trailers.
Yeah.
Yep. Hey, Nick, thanks again so much for being on. I don't know if I've told you recently, but thank you for the help on the small block and getting that thing going within 3 hours of it rolling up to Ryan's house. That was a hell of a lot of fun. We still have a video in the queue that I need to go through and get ready from that. We have so much footage that's just mixed on cell phones and GoPros, and we didn't know what we were doing, and we didn't think it would run. And I think we talk about that video as like the most, or that project is the most emotional day of either of our car lives. You know, it's going to run in 2 seconds. It's seized. Nick comes over. It's not seized. Turn it and stop being a Sally and make this thing run. And then it runs. And
yeah,
that's true. That
was my recollection of that, to quickly say, like, you guys were like, Nick, the thing is seized, I think. And I came over there and I saw you, Josh, super big, strong guy, like barely putting any torque into the wrench. And I'm like, Josh, feel free. Like, first time I'd met you, maybe at that point. And I was like, Josh, I don't think you're actually turning it hard enough, man. Give it a little juice, buddy. Like, turn that thing, crank it. And you did, and it finally broke loose, and you're like, oh my God, thank you. That was funny. I was like,
we figured we were going to be I thought for sure I was going to strip the hell out of that little tiny bolt. You're like, no, dude, wrench it.
I was like, it's a 9/16, man. You got to crank these babies, and you got it running that day, purred like a kitten.
Right.
Nice.
Oh,
Yeah.
so funny.
Yeah.
Again, Nick, thank you. Ryan, thanks for putting it together. Guys that
Thanks
tuned
for
in
having
and
me, guys.
commented, thank you so much. Half Fast Garage said he joined some new channels today, was glad to find us online. Had a lot of fun commenting with him. Of course, Super Culture, Straight Six fan, great comments, guys. And Is That a Super is on as well. So thank you all for jumping on and being a part of our fun live here. As always, cheers to you guys.
Yep. We'll catch everybody next week. We'll have a regular video, and the week after that, we'll have another live. We got a few people in the air, but stay tuned. April 13th, we've got Christy Lee from Motor Trend coming on. So we're pretty excited about that one. So thanks everybody tuning in tonight. We will catch you guys later.
Go subscribe, Classic Nation.
Yep. Go check out Nick and Evan at Classic Nation. They got a
Cheers,
great
guys.
channel.